Hello everyone, welcome. Hopefully you can all see me and hear me. Please let me know if you can. This is the first time I have used a camera or used a microphone in a long time. So hopefully everything's working. I'm in Barcelona, where it is really lovely. It's just turning into night, so hopefully the lighting is okay and you can all see me. And the other thing I just want to let you all know is that I'm in a lovely old apartment, but it is an old apartment, and the fuse box tends to go, or a fuse tends to go, on about a sort of once a day frequency. So if we get halfway through this and suddenly I disappear offline, it's probably because I need to run over to the fuse box over there and flick a switch back on. So yeah, I just give you that apology in advance if that happens, and we can all cross our fingers that it doesn't. Lovely to see lots of you here. Who do we have? I'm not going to say hello to everyone individually, but lots of friendly, familiar faces. Lots of bootcamp people. Hello, bootcamp people. Hello, maintainers and mentors. The Angelicas and the Bethanies and the Glens of this world. Good. Lots of you here. Awesome. Do make sure that you are watching live if you're not already. Hi, Fred, as well. Fred, you've changed from Fred to FP. That's very confusing. Where is everyone in the world? Tell me where you all are. Give me a feel for where everyone is. Yeah, welcome to the new faces as well, not just the friendly old faces. If this is your first time on a sort of live stream or video with me, welcome. But it would be good to know where everyone is. Yeah, I do watch cricket. I haven't watched cricket for a year because I've been on my travels. I'm homeless nowadays, but in a good way, not a bad way. But I'm fully nomadic, so I don't have access to all of the cricket that I used to watch. But when I used to be in England, I used to watch cricket constantly. Lots of people from all over the world. Awesome. Hey, Joey. Yeah, so the wrench is just for those who have been moderators rather on the boot camp, and who did lots and lots of these live streams, and would make sure that people behave themselves on them. Okay, good. So thank you all for coming. If you're watching this back afterwards, thank you for watching it back afterwards as well. My aim today is just to give a bit of an update on Exercism. I haven't for a while, but I often would put together update videos, put them in the insiders bit of the website. Not that many people watch them. So I thought maybe doing a bit of a live stream where it can be a bit more interactive, we can do a bit more Q&A, we can bounce some ideas around would be good. Back long ago, we used to have community calls, which were fun as well. But I think I would sort of this time want to make it more about just updating everyone that's in the Exercism ecosystem and having a bit more of a permanent record. Hey, Aaron, welcome. Aaron, you really should have a wrench. We should set that up. So let's start a little bit with the state of where Exercism's at. So I'll talk about where we've got to today. A couple of sort of things this year that we've done. So the boot camp is the biggest thing. I'll talk about that a little bit. Also, some of the work we've done on reducing costs. I'll talk about that. A bit of an update since the last sort of blog post, I guess, that we put out about that probably 18 months ago now. I also want to talk about some of the sort of features we have planned, or I have planned for Exercism, and explore those a little bit as well. I want to talk about the new product that we're launching at the beginning of next year, which is a dedicated product for beginners, which I'm really excited about. Also, a lot of work that we've been doing on building advertising and partnership things to help fund us that I want to talk about. And then I would open up to a general sort of Q&A. So as I go through those things, I'm going to sort of pause for for Q&As. You can ask questions, maybe just jot questions down on a bit of paper as I'm talking, and then I'll say, does anyone have a question? And you can all then write your questions at that point. That makes it a bit easier for me than if there's just a stream of comments happening, and it's a bit challenging for me to keep up with everything. I'm just going to have a sip of water. One thing I learned from doing these live streams in the bootcamp is that having lots of water is very important. So, firstly, where is Exercism? Let me pull up some numbers. So, if you don't know about the impact page, you can all go and have a little look over here. In fact, let me just work a little bit of magic for one sec. How do I go into studio mode in OBS nowadays? Studio mode, there we go. Give me a second, let me share my screen. I wasn't going to do this, so I haven't set it up beforehand, but 1 second and I will work out how to do this. Here we go. And, okay, to make it a bit smaller. Okay, this will do. So let me show you. Have a little look at that link, and I'm going to get it up here as well so you can all watch it with me. Okay, good. So hopefully you can all see that now. I've been to India for the last 2 years. I like India. So this is where we're at. This is a fun page, by the way, if you don't know about it. It's a live page. So you can see on the map things happen. So you can see where people are doing things, where they're publishing. These icons are every time someone submits an exercise. So you can see someone in Africa is doing Gleam. Louis will be happy. But yeah, this is a nice little live map that you can do. Cool, bye, do watch it back. Thanks for coming. So big numbers. We're about to hit 2.5 million students, which is incredible. We're growing by about 2,000 to 2,500 new users a day, which is also pretty awesome. That's all through word of mouth. Exercism still never spent anything on marketing or advertising. We've grown entirely by word of mouth. So we grow very fast. Those people use the site. We have 60 million exercise submissions, which equates to about 300 million minutes of education. This is based on sort of how long people are spending in between submissions when they're working the editor, and then we extrapolate that back a little bit, plus some numbers for mentoring. Also 400,000 mentoring discussions, which is pretty cool. Yeah, we don't have many spam accounts. So I'll talk about bots and spam in a minute, but we have a lot of sort of filters in place that check for things. And if you scroll down a bit, if you've not seen this page before, you can also see lots and lots of testimonials. You can see many testimonials just today alone, which is awesome. So yeah, if you ever want to sort of get motivated on what's just generally happening on Exercism, you can go and you can look here and you can see all of this. So in terms of raw numbers, that's where we're at. So pretty cool things. In terms of money in the bank, we have 0. So we are currently 2 full-time members of staff, me and Aaron, plus Nicole, who has been working full-time on things for the last 2 to 3 months, and also been sort of working a lot during the first half of the year on the boot camp. And then we have server costs. So that's those are our sort of costs each month. We are covering maybe 2/3 of those costs on donations now, which is really great. I'm going to talk about server costs in a bit, but we do about 15,000 in donations a month now. So if you are a regular donator or just a one-off donator, thank you so much for that. We massively appreciate it. It's like, as I've said many times, we would have shut Exercism down if it wasn't for your support. So you are keeping Exercism very much alive. But yeah, we have 0 in the bank. So we just get by each month. Some months we, especially during the beginning of the year with the bootcamp seats, we made a profit of about, I think our top month was 30k, which sort of paid almost for 2 months. So that's sort of given us a bit of buffer, but that's now run back out. So we're back at 0. And basically, if we hit 0, I top it up from my personal consulting business, which I don't actually do anything in anymore, but I still got some funds in it from when I did. So I basically top it up from that, and that enables us to pay the bills each month. So that's sort of been our situation for a while. So Aaron's in the chat. So yeah, me and Aaron are full-time basically. So a lot of my thinking and focus over the last, I guess, 12 months has been thinking about the future of Exercism, specifically in 2 areas. One is how do we increase the amount of funds coming in so we can do more stuff? I'm still earning probably like a fifth of what I would earn on the open market. So that isn't very sustainable for me in the long term. But it's okay for now if there's some sort of future plan. So one thing is how do we get funds to keep us going? And the other side of things is how do we make Exercism a product that's really valuable to people? So I've been spending a lot of time, as sure a lot of you have who are developers over the last year, thinking about what the future of software development looks like and trying to make sense of that. So obviously LLMs have changed a lot of things. I'm sure there's a lot of competing opinions that people have. I'm sure the wisest of you have the most balanced opinions on this stuff. But it's very difficult to predict, I think, how AI is going to change coding and where Exercism then fits into that and what that looks like. Both in terms of the short term of how do we sort of use AI to make Exercism a better product, but also in the medium term and the longer term of what software development generally looks like. So I've sort of been trying to take things quite slowly. I've been trying to not jump into adding AI all around Exercism, largely because I don't think AI has been good enough. When I say I'm just going to use AI and LLMs interchangeably in this, I appreciate they're not interchangeable, but it's one less syllable. So 2 less syllables, in fact, I think, a long guess. Understanding that AI probably isn't good enough to do a lot of what I would like it to do. Although I'm getting to the point now where I think it is, which I'll talk about in a minute. But also wanting to see how things really sort of unraveled a bit over the last 12 months. Were we going to get to a point where suddenly anyone could use Lovable or one of these vibe coding platforms to just make anything and software development was going to dramatically change? Or were we getting to a point where that wasn't possible, but where it might be useful for devs or it might be not so helpful for devs? So a lot of time spent thinking about that. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But really I've tried to keep Exercism's costs as low as possible, develop things slowly, and then run the bootcamp. So I'm going to talk about the bootcamp next. Does anyone have any sort of general questions about anything I've just said first? While I take a sip of coffee. I'll give everyone a second to ask questions. If you don't have questions, but you're still listening, say no questions, and then I know people are still here. So a question about do I include spam in the 2000 number? Yeah, I do. So we don't, it's very, very hard to sign up to Exercism if you're not a human. So we have Cloudflare, we verify every email address that comes in. It's a lot of work to well, I think it's, there's a lot of forces against you if you're trying to automatically through bots create Exercism accounts. You're basically better than Cloudflare at that point. We do get manual sign-ups from humans who are creating accounts to then use for bad purposes, but they are small, like a handful a day, often none at all. So yeah, the 2,000 is probably about an average. We peak some days at 3,000 people signing up. I don't think we ever drop below 1,500 a day anymore. So yeah, 2,000 is sort of a fair conservative number, I think. Okay. Josh, I think I answered your question. Good. Okay, so the bootcamp. So one of the big challenges with Exercism is designed for people who are already able to code. So it could be junior devs, mid devs, or senior devs. It's not set up for beginners. And that's always been the way of Exercism. It's a very deliberate decision. It's not a learn to code platform. It's a platform that if you can do a bit of coding will really help teach you new languages, help accelerate your progress. If you use the mentoring functions, will really help with you finding your blind spots, understanding where you are missing out on knowledge and where that's coming back to bite you. But about 1,000 people a day that do sign up to Exercism are beginners, maybe a bit more. Probably about half the people that sign up are beginners. And Exercism is too early for them. But the existing products out there don't do a good enough job at getting them upskilled. So with a lot of work, you can use the existing products out there. And if you have the tenacity and the intelligence and other things, the time, all of these things, you might be able to use those things to get past. But the vast majority of people, the stats I saw when I looked at this a couple of years ago, were like 97% of people that try to learn to code give up. And I think when you look at the platforms out there, I think it's quite easy to understand why that is. They take generally a sort of almost Duolingo style approach where it's like learn the concept of a loop and then do lots of tiny little challenges to teach you what a loop is. And lots of people get to this point where they know what an if statement is, they know what a loop is, they know all these things, but they don't actually know how to ever put these things together to use them in programs and real code. So the mission that I sort of set for myself was, can we build something for these 1,000 or so people a day that are signing up that actually teach them to code? With the idea that eventually this would be maybe a freemium product. So we're teaching a lot of people to code, but we are also hopefully generating some revenue from it. For context there, looking again at something like Duolingo, 8% of people that use Duolingo convert to premium subscribers. So you can build a very sustainable model off a freemium model if you've got the volume. And having 1,000 people a day sign up is a very good model. You've got the volume there. You just need to provide people with a good enough product. So I set out to run a boot camp. And the reason I did that was that I know a lot about teaching programming, but I don't know a lot about the exact challenges that total beginners face. And so I wanted to take a cohort of either total beginners or people that had learnt from other sites and got stuck, and very closely work with those people over many months to understand where they were getting stuck, to understand the psychological sort of challenges that they were going through, to understand the learning gaps, to understand where things get hard, to understand the bits that I think are going to be hard, but actually that's really easy. So each week for 6 months, we did 3 hours of live teaching, like this, and then a series of exercises, which I'll show you in a second, and then 3 hours of labs where I talked through the exercises, sort of showed people how to solve things, explained different approaches. I think a lot of people said that that was some of the most useful content. We had some wonderful volunteers, many of whom are here today. And they really helped mentor people, support people, and help people get through that. My aim was to sort of for everyone to not get stuck. So for no one to find this impenetrably hard. Maybe some people did, but I think most people dropped out. Most people who dropped out due to lack of time, or maybe they decided coding as something wasn't for them. Very few people, I think, dropped out because they got very stuck, which was my sort of real goal. So for those of you that haven't seen the bootcamp, this is a little bit what it looks like inside. Let me share my screen. So we had a nice little editor like this. This is a language that we wrote for the bootcamp. And it's deliberately a language that has certain constraints and certain ideas in there to stop people from shooting themselves in the foot, which is a big problem when learning to code. And the idea was it was a very visual, hands-on way of learning. So rather than sort of writing things, writing code where you're trying to get a textual test suite to pass, you would have sort of games like this where you would have to solve the game. So in this situation, you're basically programming this laser to go and to shoot all the aliens down. Or here, you are creating an automated paddle at the bottom, where you are hitting all of the blocks and knocking them down. So already within a few months, people are chaining functions together. This is a student's code here, chaining functions together, using object-oriented code, doing all sorts of quite complex things. So you definitely get stuck. Getting stuck is very, very important, but not getting terminally stuck. So the point is that you should be able to get stuck, but not get stuck to such an extreme that you can't get unstuck. So we built lots of tech into this. So for example, as you use this, you can actually see what's happening on every line. So you can see a little description. So here we're saying, move the paddle in directions. We're saying this used this function with an instance of game and the number 1. And then we can start to look through and we can say this evaluated to false. You can understand what happens. You can use these little steppers to step all the way through the code, forward and back. You can scroll forward and back. You can add breakpoints, and then you can jump through breakpoints and see every time you're hitting different breakpoints. We built lots and lots of stuff in here that stops people from getting stuck. We also built a model in here where you can build your own library of functions that you can then compose together. So people can come into their library and build functions. So this is something that, this is not my code, but we give them some test suites like this, and then you build in a number to string converter. That is quite extreme. Let's choose a length converter, a length function. So this is a length function. It's called myLength. There's exercises that get you to do this, and then you can reuse these functions, effectively import these functions into your own code. So this was a lot of technology that we built, as you can see. Yeah, we are going to get there in a minute, Solanka. Salaster of disaster. I like that. So, yeah, we built a lot of tech. We did a lot of videos. We learned a lot. And the goal of that was that learning first, and a bit of the tech, but really we wanted to learn. And we wanted to learn so that we could turn this into this new product that's going to come out in January. So what we're working on at the moment, what Aaron and I are spending our days doing, and Nicole, is building out a new product. It's going to be called Jicky. It's going to launch in January, hopefully 1st of January. And it is going to be a dedicated platform to teaching people to learn to code. It's going to be freemium, so it's going to be free. All of the content will be free. And then it's going to have a a premium layer that is focused on this sort of not getting terminally stuck bit. So I'll talk maybe a little bit more about the features in a minute. The general structure of the course is that we're going to be teaching concepts a bit like we did in the bootcamp, where you have short videos, probably 10, 15-minute max videos on every topic. You watch the video, then you're given a series of small exercises to solve. And as you work through those exercises, they become bigger and more complex, incorporating in other concepts that you've learnt. The same idea is going to be around building games, so solving puzzles, building projects. It's very much not what you see if you go and use brilliant.org or something like that, where you're clicking buttons to say, yes, do this, no, do that. It's going to be coding from day one. You're going to be able to do it in JavaScript or in Python or in JikiScript, which is the language that we used for the bootcamp. So I've written my own JavaScript interpreter and my own Python interpreter that both mean all of those things I just showed you, with the scrubber, with the buttons, with the breakpoints, with the games, with the interactivity, with the debug messages. All of that will work for JavaScript and for Python as well. And we've removed a lot of what are called the foot guns of JavaScript. So a lot of the stuff that you can do in JavaScript to really get yourself in a mess, all of those things are turned off by default. So in JavaScript, if you add, I'm sure you all know this, but I can show you over here. So if you, just check you can see this, let me make this a bit bigger. In JavaScript, if you have something like this and this, you'll get that. But if you have this and you have this, you'll get that. This and this are the same, etc., etc. So you end up with a lot of carnage in JavaScript that can be very, very confusing when you start. But all of those things will be disabled in the language. So if you do this, you will just get an error message saying you really shouldn't be trying to add an array and the number 5 together. That doesn't make any sense. You can't do that. So yeah, this will be it'll be a runtime error, but yeah, it will be like a full runtime error. Truthiness is also disabled, so you can't do that. For example, I don't know if you can see that. It's dropping off the bottom of the screen. Yeah, you can see it. So you can't do if 5 or something like this, etc., etc. Lots more features. And these all have feature flags under the hood, so we can introduce them later on as we sort of move more into helping people understand JavaScript. But as you're learning to code, these are not things you need to be doing. And if you are doing these things, then you're probably not intending to do these things. That's probably a mistake. Runtime error, don't do that. Yeah, runtime error that says you shouldn't be trying to do type coercion, basically. So yeah, we have feature flags for type coercion, truthiness, lots and lots of other things like that. So also all of the videos and the content will be internationalized. So the videos will be in, I don't know how many languages, but lots of languages. And the website content itself will be internationalized. Not the coding, you're still coding in English, which I think is probably important from what I understand from the research that's been done on that. But all of the information around it, the error messages, the instructions, the tutorials, all of that sort of stuff will be entirely internationalized. And there will also be videos at the end of exercises that are 5-10 minute videos that talk you through the best practices and everything else in that. So I'm just going to pause and just read questions, because I think some of the questions people are asking will be very good questions. For some reason, I can't use my scroll pad in here, which is annoying. So let me just jump up to... I'll talk about AI in a bit. Yeah, this will stay video on demand, so you can watch it back. Luca, great to see you. See you soon. Exercism, I would recommend you use Jiki in January and learn from that, and just take 3 months off to just sort of get really excited about coding in the meantime. Good. Okay. I think I've answered your question there, Sen. So this will be, it won't be local, no. This will be in the platform only. The language is integrated into the platform. Yeah, I think I've answered the 3-hour live stream things as well. Will there be other programs than the front-end development path? At the moment, I'm not really thinking about the boot camp. I want to get Jiki done. I'm building Jiki as a platform. So my aim with Jiki is that once it's done, we could use it in much wider ways. So I'll talk about this in sort of the future of Exercism bit in a minute. I've built out JavaScript and Python versions. There's no reason we couldn't build out other versions as well for other languages. Some would be harder than others. But conceptually, there's no blockers to stop us from doing what I've done with JavaScript and Python for any language. So we could then start to have all of these exercises solved in the same way like this. I'm very interested in doing things like a functional programming course where we use a functional programming language or 2 or 3, a Haskell, a Gleam, maybe a JavaScript. And we use these sorts of things, but restrict them to functional approaches. I may be more interested in that sort of thing than doing like a front-end course or a back-end course. Mainly because I think there's a lot of front-end, back-end stuff out there, and it's quite a saturated market. And I don't know if the platform works as well for trying to teach that stuff as it does for trying to teach more fundamental coding ideas. Yeah, I think there's stuff in there. Why don't I add a B2B model with Exercism? It's something we've considered for a long time. The problem with any sort of model is that you have to have people that go out and contact all the universities. And when we have no resource to do that, that gets quite challenging. But with Jiki, one of the things I want to do with Jiki is try and go out to every school and every university in the world and say, here's a platform to teach all of your students to learn to code. It's in your local language. There is a layer on top that shows you how your students are progressing. It costs $1 per student per month per year, maybe $1 per student per year, depending on the country you're in. Sign up. And then a school in India might be paying, I don't know, $100, $200 a year, and all of the students in their school can learn to code from a world-class platform without needing any teaching expertise in there. And I think there are obviously lots of resources, things like Khan Academy out there, but I think the level of quality of what we're doing here for the Learn to Code stuff compared to Khan Academy is like vastly superior. So I see no reason why every university, school, even every company shouldn't be offering to their students, employees, a Learn to Code option. I feel like, maybe this comes to my opinions on AI a little bit, but I feel like what AI is going to do is mean that if you can code, this is going to 10x your ability to do so. And that's where AI is going to end up. And I think there's a more need than ever for everyone to learn to code. I think I have lots of thoughts, but let's not get too into that. But yeah, so I do see that as a potential revenue stream for this as well. Thank you. That'd be great. Yeah, I think when we get there, I'd really like to try and really, look at the hundreds of thousands of people that have benefited from Exercism and really say, okay, can you help us get into your networks? I think the network effect of Exercism is the thing that everyone could really do, especially in countries where people can't afford to donate much, but they might be able to help us with that network effect. Yeah, FP and Gleam could be cool. I was chatting to Louis about this last week, maybe. Yeah, I agree, Bethany. I agree. I think fundamentals are more powerful. That's where I think I'm also maybe best at teaching. Okay, any more questions on sort of the boot camp or on Jicky in general? I could sort of talk about all this. I've been thinking about it constantly for about 12 months. But yeah, if you've got any questions, I will answer them. I will take a bit of coffee. If you don't have questions, you can just write no questions and I will continue. If you have non-Jicky related questions, please write them down and then you can tell me them when we get to the Q&A bit in a bit. One thing I've I'll answer that in a second, Sen. So one thing I have wrestled with a lot is whether Jicky is part of Exercism or separate from Exercism. I've come to the conclusion very much for now that it's separate to Exercism. There are a couple of reasons for that, maybe 3 reasons for that. The first one is that I think Exercism is worse off by having a reputation as a beginner platform, which it does have in lots of places. And I think it limits what we do. I think senior people think it's for beginners and beginners think it's for them when it's not. So I think making Exercism more clearly as a place where junior, mids and seniors go, and Jicky is the place where beginners and juniors go, for now at least, I think is a much harder distinction. Secondly, Exercism is community generated. That's what makes Exercism so brilliant. It also makes Exercism much harder for me. If I want to change something in Exercism, I need to both get the buy-in of maintainers in 80 programming languages, but also need to persuade people in 80 programming languages to give up their time to make changes and do things. It makes it very hard for me to have ideas and just go and execute them and implement them. So it limits my creativity a lot, and it limits my ability to innovate. The phrase that business books would use for this is that Exercism has a lot of inertia. You can imagine it as a ship going very fast. To turn around, it has to travel a lot of miles before it can get the brakes on, turn and move. It's also a product that works. It helps, tens of thousands of people every day. So Exercism as a product is a really good product. So I want the freedom with Jicky to go and just do stuff that's new, that's chaotic, that I don't need to persuade other people to invest their time into. And then my hope is that whatever I learn from that, we can sort of re-input into Exercism to make Exercism a lot better platform down the line. The third thing is that Exercism, by its very nature, is free and open source. That's like the core bit of it in many ways. I don't want to limit myself with Jicky to it being free. It might be that I choose to charge $1 to everyone to get a certificate, or $1 to everyone to do the functional programming course. I'm certainly not in any way seeing this as something that's like another product for the wealthy people. There's a lot of products like that. Whatever I do with this, it will have pricing parity. My aim will be to have the biggest global impact I can, to open up programming to as many people as I can. But as I wrote in my my blog post a year ago now, when Eric left, I feel like the whole model around donation sustainability is so hard to do. I just don't want to limit myself to that. So for those 3 reasons, I've sort of kept Jicky as a separate thing for now, but they're very much sister and brother companies. So I've set up a company for Jicky and taken a little bit of investment from somebody that's previously donated a lot of money to Exercism into that company as a way of funding Jicky. That company has already donated 50k to Exercism to keep Exercism alive over the last year. So just having these slight separations, I think, is going to mean that they are able to work next to each other. So that's my sort of route on this. Very much for those of you that know me, like I'm a very mission-driven purpose. What makes me happy is helping people and sort of trying to have a big impact. And so really the driving force in all this for me is what means that I can pay myself enough that I can actually afford to do this. And then how do I help, 100 million people, not 2 million people? And all of the sort of decisions that I'm making, those like the guiding factors for me. So yeah, I see them very much under the umbrella. Yeah, so Jiki will be for beginners and junior developers, but it might also be eventually for like things like a functional programming course or an OOP functioning course. OOP course, where you are learning programming concepts rather than programming languages. But that also, those bits might fold directly back into Exercism. That's where it might be a nice thing on Exercism as well. So yeah, I'm not sure. So a good question there is job market not taking any junior developers due to AI. So that concept is a really interesting one. So yeah, the junior development market is terrible. The idea there are no junior developer roles just isn't true. But there's definitely a lot more junior developers looking for jobs than there are seemingly roles. There's multiple things in play here. There is definitely the fact that a lot of people are junior developers and that companies are reluctant to hire junior developers due to the growth in AI. So I think it is harder. I also think there's a lot of people who can code, but when I have seen their CVs, their applications, as someone that's looked to hire people, so much of the surrounding bit is really, really, really bad that I can't imagine ever hiring that person, not on their sort of skill as a developer alone, but all of the other parts of what you look for when you're hiring someone. So I think there's a very big part there as well around the fact that we need to educate people on how to present themselves as a more rounded person, a more rounded like option for a hiring company, rather than just someone saying, I can hire, I've done this course, I've got this certificate. I'm actually exploring with a publisher at the moment who are about to release some books on the human side of job interviews and the technical side of job interviews, and actually maybe turning that into a little free product under Exercism's brand as well, where it would be a product where you can practice with LLMs doing interviews and both from building CVs and talking about yourself in a way that helps companies understand you beyond just the technical side. So that would be a free product that we might do, which I think could be really interesting. I was quite excited when we had that conversation. So anyway, there's a whole bit there. But there's a more fundamental thing to all this, which is you don't get senior developers without junior developers. And the job market right now doesn't want junior developers, but it is desperate for more senior developers. And senior developers are able to ask for more money than ever. So although right now it might seem that there's a big problem in the market with junior developers, we do need to get people up to this senior level more, somehow. And that's either going to be through getting experience in a junior role, or it's going to be that people are going to have to learn to get a lot further in their knowledge before they get to their first job. It might be that we only hire mid-level developers. And it might be that becoming a mid-level developer now means that you have to be able to do a lot more. And you have to be able to do that before you've had a job where you can do it. And so I think there's a really interesting set of questions around what can we do to help people go not only from 0 to I can code, now give me a junior job, but 0 to I'm able to confidently build, deploy, and deal with bugs in apps in a professional manner, etc., etc. So actually you can hire me more almost as a mid developer than a junior developer. And I think there's going to be interesting products around that, about learning how to work in teams, learning how to work with version control, learning how to write maintainable code. A lot of the stuff that you previously learnt on the job, I think a lot of people are going to have to learn not on the job. And I think there's a lot of very interesting stuff there. And these are all problems that I would love to tackle and would love to really help the world with and help people trying to get into the job market with. For that, I need money and I need to be able to hire people to work with me on that. And that's one of the reasons why, I need something like Jiki to be able to bring money in. If we got 1 million people to sign up to Jiki and, 8% of those people were paying $5 a month, we can then start to hire some people to make some of these products, to do some of this stuff, to hack away at some of these challenges in a really ethical and, their interests first sort of way, rather than a how do we exploit these people who are looking for jobs sort of way. So that's a big part of my motivation, and sort of when I think of what my 5-10 year goal is personally, this is sort of a lot of the strategy of how these things piece together a little bit. Right, let me read any more questions or comments. Cool. Hey, Matt. It's nice to see you. The problem with VC and investors putting things into AI-related startups is that they don't really care about making, $10 million off helping 10 million people. They care about making $100 million off the richest people, because that's where the money is. So there is a real misalignment, I think, between VCs who want a 100x exit and making a big social impact. I think there's room for angels who have who have money that they would like to sort of charitably invest, which is where we are already with Jiki, where somebody's put in $250,000 as a sort of charitable investment, after also putting double that into Exercism over a few years, which kept Exercism going. I think there's definitely a route for charitable investment where people, they've got investment funds in this case with other investors, and they're able to deploy their capital, but they really want to do good with that, and they're not looking for some sort of 100x return. Not necessarily even looking for return. They might just want a dividend 5 years from now. So I think there's strategic approaches I could take. There's also the idea of sort of crowdfunded investment, where we say, okay, we've got 2.5 million people signed up to Exercism. If all of those people invested $50, that's a lot of money for Exercism, or in this case, Jiki, because Exercism's a non-profit, so it can't take investment. A lot of money to Jiki to start doing good with, and all of those people become investors in that. So if it does work, they'll get some payback. So I do like the idea that the people using the product could become small investors, where they're investing a really small amount, relative to a massive VC. It's a small sort of gamble. The worst case is that their money goes to helping other people. The best case is they get some long-term dividend out of that. So they're not ideas I'm actively exploring right now. Right now, I'm laser focused on building a product that's really great and that helps people, and then we see where we end up. But these are things that if I can say, Jiki's going really well. We've got 5,000 people a day signing up. It's the only platform in the world teaching people to load and then learn to code in their native languages. It's amazingly effective with great retention, and it's a really fair freemium model. Could we crowdsource some investment on this? I think that's an appealing option for me. In terms of, does Exercism offer unpaid internships? No, we don't, because I haven't got any time to manage people. We do, it's open source. We do take contributions in many repos, but many repos also don't take contributions. There's lots of blog posts on this, and if you ask on Discord afterwards, I'll happily answer on there as well. I think junior developers banding together to do stuff is a really great idea. Yeah, I think I learned to code by making stuff myself. I learned to code by making games and doing things. I built things with friends. I created my first business when I was 14, where we sold websites to people back when you could do that. If you go to the bootcamp page, there's a picture of, in fact, I'll find this for you and you can all see it. What's the URL? So if you go here and scroll down, you can see this was little me, aged, I think I was 16 here. Little me with my friend Rodri, and this was the Rocks PHP book, building a website for like, I don't know how much, £500 or something. This was a little office we hired for the summer. So yeah, I think definitely just going and building stuff and finding a neighbor that wants a website and making them a website is like, you know, don't try and sell them a 50 grand website, make some pocket money off it, but get that experience, deal with some real world problems. If somebody is looking for a job and they can say they did those things, that's really going to like impress me. I appreciate that a lot of people don't have the time for that. I know time is a really valuable resource. But it is something where if you do have the free time, you know, stop watching Netflix and spend an hour making stuff each evening instead. Something I would say. Oh, wrong screen. Oh, that's depressing. I thought you were just sending me lots of hearts. There you go. That's little me and little Rodri, age 14, with a Rocks PHP book and a little office we hired for the summer. Can you see that now? I hope you can see that now. Someone's still hearting, but I can't tell if you're now hearting because you see it. You still looking at the library, or are you seeing that now? I think you're seeing that now. If you're not seeing that now, something's gone terribly wrong. Okay, you see it. Good. You have a lag of a few seconds. Okay. I have been to India. I was in Delhi last year. I was in Mumbai the year before. You can look at my Instagram and you can see pictures from India that I took. Here you go. I'll link you to my Instagram and you can look at there's a few pictures on there from India. Okay. Good. Were there any other questions we had here? Let me scroll back up a little bit. I don't mind if people are taking equity as well. Like I have no issue at all with people having, 49% of Jiki or anything else. I don't, as long as I've got the sort of the control to be able to say, this is my vision. I'm going to go and execute it. I'm going to go and take the risks and be innovative and entrepreneurial in the way I approach this. If people are putting their money into this, I'm happy for everyone to take their fair share of the profits. I'm happy for people to own 90% of the equity, as long as I get sort of the say on how things are run. And you can structure things like that. But that's a lot harder to do, obviously, in a VC model. That's not going to be acceptable in a VC model. But that can be acceptable in, you can always choose your own model in life. You might not get the same amount of investors, or you might get different investors, but I think it's possible. Okay, that's Jiki. Let me talk about one more thing. So we've been working for the last month on sending out and cold contacting lots of companies who we think would be interested in advertising on Exercism or partnering with Exercism. So one of our income streams at the moment is through code crafter referrals. So many of you sign up to Code Crafters each month. Code Crafters, like people signing up to Code Crafters using our referral code, now covers our server costs. So that's been like a hugely beneficial thing for us. It's gone down a bit in the last couple of months, so I think we might have sort of peaked a little bit. But there were definitely, so maybe I shouldn't say it is covering our server costs, but it was definitely covering our server costs like at its peak point. So that's been really helpful to understand. And understand that the amount of traffic we have is valuable to advertisers. You know, we are by far the biggest referrer to code crafters. We're their biggest, source of growth, and they are a great revenue source for us. Now, so we've been exploring other options. So one option I've put together, and that we're in discussions with a company that you would know, but I can't say who yet, about, is the idea that a lot of companies want to get people using their product and give them some way of getting started with their product and having sort of having some interaction with their APIs and other things. But they don't know how to reach those developers. They can sort of get an advert in front of developers quite easy. But speaking as a developer, if I see an advert, often it puts me off more than it attracts me. So I've put together sort of a mini vision, if you like, of a part of Exercism, or maybe a sub-site that's, again, under the Exercism umbrella, as DJ articulately put it earlier, where you can try companies' APIs for free in some fun projects. So imagine, I'm trying to think of examples that aren't the example that we have here. So maybe I'll talk around the example we have. Imagine you wanted to try, I don't know, an auto video making platform. Let's go with this, where it automatically makes a video from something. And maybe you've gone into Gemini and you've tried saying, Google, make me a video on this, but you haven't really thought of any interesting applications. So maybe we create some projects where, actually you're doing something, and at the end of, like, you're playing a game, maybe you're playing the game of Breakout, and at the end of it, you get a little personal video that gets generated that is like, oh, that was really good, unlucky hitting that top block. Maybe next time try this tactic. And you can use this company's API and practice using it and understand how to use it to generate that bit of the thing. So it might be that the whole project is you solve like a bit of the Breakout game, and then you have an LLM that analyzes what happens and gives you some tips for next time, and then you automatically create a video. We partner with the company, the video making company, and we build their API into the project. They pay us a fixed fee to make the exercise, but then they pay us every time somebody uses the exercise. So every time someone uses the exercise, puts the API key in, they pay us maybe $1. So for them, they're getting new signups at the rate of $1 per signup. For us, every time we can encourage somebody to try their API out, we get $1. So it's like a hugely aligned thing. The more we can encourage people to try this and hopefully make fun projects that you all want to try, that you can solve in different languages and do different things with, the more we do that, the more money we raise. So our pure goal is make fun, interesting exercises that people want to do and then raise awareness, which is super aligned to our principles. For them, one, they can push people to us as a way of activating users and getting them to try it. But two, their cost of acquisition per user is $1, which is probably 10 to 100 times less than what they'd be paying on adverts. So it's a really synergistic win-win thing. So we've talked to one company. So I think the sort of the companies where this is right is anyone that's Series C, Series D stage, where they're raising lots of investment. They really need to grow rapidly, but they don't know how. But they've got mature APIs that we can already build products around. They're quite innovative things. They can give free credits to all of their users without it being an issue. So we've got 3 companies that are all very interested in this. One that's got a proposal that wants to go ahead. They want to do some advertising first to see how that works. And then if that works, they want to go ahead with the proposal. So this is my sort of general model on this. So yeah, this is the first time I've talked to anyone about this outside of my tiny little inner circle of basically me, Nick, and Aaron who are working on this. But yeah, I would like to know what you think about it. Yeah, maybe a tutorial for a product, Bethany, or maybe just like more some fun ways to see the value of that product in use. Well, it's sort of a business question. I'm not really asking about the business model. I'm sort of more asking around what would be fun, not the actual exercises, but what would it look like to have fun exercises that used interesting APIs? Like what APIs have you used that are quite fun? So obviously there's things like image generation, video generation, audio generation, like generative AI is the thing that's probably most on my mind at the moment. But, in part 2 of the bootcamp, we use things like NASA's API to do some fun stuff with. I've never in my life wanted to use NASA's API, but once I started using it in the bootcamp, actually it was quite fun and I wanted to just explore it. And I think that's the hook, is make people realize that this API is fun, is interesting, could be valuable. And then when you are sort of in your product, in your world, thinking of these things, and you're like, I need a tool to do this, to reach for that tool. Yeah, music's another one, map generation. Yeah, all of these things I think could be quite fun. Yeah, social APIs. Also, all of these companies I'm thinking about have developer relations people who, their job is to talk to developers, work on APIs, all of this stuff. So Sen, you would just sign up to the companies to get an API key to use. That's how it would work. You can then delete your account at said company if you want to, if you don't like it, or you can use the free credits to do something else. Translation's another fun one, yeah. So anyway, this is sort of an idea that I'm exploring. Everyone, the companies I'm speaking to, tend to all know that advertising just isn't that effective, but they like the idea of supporting Exercism. They like the sort of the social element of supporting the developer community, but don't really have a way of doing it. But it also needs to be aligned to some sort of business goals. Sen, that depends on where you are in the world. If you're in Europe, then deleting your account deletes your data. I can't speak for the laws of your country, but in a lot of countries in the world, deleting account will delete data. But well, if you delete your account and they don't delete your data in the UK, then they're breaking the law, Sen. So you can sue them for lots of money. They only have to keep data that is necessary for 3 years. They don't have to delete. They don't have to keep all of your data for 3 years. Only data that shows something along the lines of you ask them to delete it, for example. Anyway. Yeah, that's a nice idea, Bethany. Yeah. Yeah, also nice dark ruby. Yeah. Okay. So that's some broader around the sort of world thing that we're looking at. Where are we at time-wise? Let's just take a quick 5-minute break, and then I'm going to talk about costs Features adding to Exercism. Both of those can be quite brief, although the features adding to Exercism thing I think will be a point of interest and discussion. And then we will do a bit of Q&A. So I'll meet you back in 4 minutes from now. So that will be 10 past unless you're in India, in which case it will be 40 past. Make sure you hit the live button as well to make sure that you are live. See you in a few moments. Welcome back. Hey, Kazi. Kazi was our top attending bootcamp student. I saw that big picture of me and Rodri on the side that I need to close. It's too scary for me to see. Welcome back. You should also ring the bell. Yes, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I don't know if that's still a thing. You should also find my Instagram link above and follow me. About 6 of you have done that so far, and there's about 100 people watching this live. So I expect to have at least 100 more Instagram followers by the end of this. Okay, good. You have missed loads of interesting stuff, but we still have loads more interesting stuff to come. Has anyone got any questions from anything from part 1 before we jump into part 2 of the call? I'm going to do another 50 minutes, and that's my. Then it's going to be dinner time for me, because it'll be 9 p.m. here. Ooh, very nice. England's a big place to visit. Nature and peace, I'd visit the Lake District, maybe the Peak District. The Raymond Baths are very impressive in Bath. St Ives is very beautiful. Those are very spread around the country though, so it depends on which bit you're in. Okay, no questions. Let's rock and roll. So costs. So I talked about this quite a bit over the previous few months, just on Discord and stuff. So starting towards the end of the boot camp, so I guess May. Starting at the end of May, we really started getting slaughtered by bots. And by bots here, I don't mean users logged in. I mean just web scrapers scraping the website, trying to get content, trying to find URLs that don't exist, just nefarious, annoying stuff. We were peaking at 45,000 requests a second. That was painful. So yeah, the website was getting very slow for people at sporadic points. So you would just see happy, and then just the average response time would go from 30 milliseconds to 7 seconds. As we were just trying to work through a backlog of 40,000 requests per second or whatever. It was ridiculous. So I started looking into this. We tried to do a lot of stuff, adding things like WAF, a firewall, on CloudFront. That added an extra $40 a day and was unable to detect that 45,000 requests per second from a single IP address was a bot. Couldn't work that one out. Way too complicated a signal for it. So that was great. So I gave up on that. So I then undertook basically a 2-stage process. The first stage was to remove every variable cost I could from our setup and make everything scale. So previously, some things scaled. We had a database that would scale. So it would scale in terms of capacity units from being a very small amount of capacity units to a very large amount of capacity units. Well, not very large, but a largish amount of capacity units. So that database, when we were getting hit by the costs, our database alone was costing us $3,500 a month. Just to deal with the level of requests, 45,000 requests a second, each doing, 100 queries or something. I was looking and we were doing I can't remember what the scale was, but it was 1 billion requests a month or something, maybe a week. I can't remember. It was a lot of requests. Yeah, it was a bit ridiculous. So scaling things like that, scaling all the web servers so they could scale up and down more. So that was the first thing. I wanted to basically remove any fixed costs and make them variable, and then take all of our variable costs and understand what they were and try and either cap them or reduce them. Because, for example, we ended up spending like $30 to $40 a day just on CloudFront. So our CDN was costing us like $40 a day just to render requests, which was ridiculous. So the next thing I did was then move us to Cloudflare. So massive props to Cloudflare, brilliant company. Put everything behind Cloudflare, and it dealt with the bot problem very, very quickly. It could work out that 45,000 requests a second from a single IP address was, not a good thing. 2, it's free. So it wasn't costing us $40 a day like CloudFront was costing us. And C, we could do caching stuff that we couldn't do. I'm going to say couldn't do, but very much couldn't do easily with CloudFront. It enabled us to delete a whole load of custom code I'd had to write on CloudFront, which was also starting to cost us a fortune. So all in all, it took our server costs down from like what was peaking at like $8,000 to like $2,500. So I basically spent a month doing nothing but ops, and pretty much, half to a third of our costs for servers, which was a very good month well spent, basically. Something that would have been hard to justify before, to spend like a whole month just reducing those costs. But once the costs started scaling with bot attacks, it became something that was very worthwhile. So yeah, that was that. The one downside of Cloudflare is that every time there's a Spanish football game on, you can't visit Exercism from Spain. So if there is a La Liga game on, if Real Madrid are playing, if Barcelona are playing, you can't access Exercism from Spain unless you go via a VPN. So if you're interested in that, I've got a LinkedIn post on it. You can go and have a look on LinkedIn. Here you go. I'll link to my LinkedIn, and you can go and dig out the relevant post and find that. But yeah, it does mean I'll be happily working away, and suddenly I have to turn a VPN on to be able to access Exercism. Also, I learned yesterday, I also can't access Claude, like Anthropic's Claude, during La Liga football matches either. So it's not just us, it's half the internet. But yeah, find the LinkedIn post. So no, we have no GitHub costs, which is very good for us. So we, as an organization, have lifetime infinite free GitHub. So thank you, GitHub, for that. But that saves us an awful lot. I'm nomadic, so I don't have a home, but I am in Spain right now. Yeah, I'm in Barcelona. I like product and coding the best. I like business as well. I don't like talking to other people. I like sitting in front of a dark screen and writing code. So whatever I can do in that bit, whether it's business or product or coding, that's my happy place. I like talking to other people for stuff, just not for work stuff. Okay, any more questions on costs? And then I'll move on to Exercism features. For those of you still on the bootcamp, good question, Alexander. So you'll basically just get like free access to the premium version of Jiki. You'll basically get, I don't think I'm going to probably migrate the bootcamp accounts. So you'll basically be able to work through the bootcamp. You'll be able to work through Jiki itself from scratch. You'll be able to jump ahead to points if you feel you can. A lot of the exercises will be similar or the same, so you can redo those. You'll still have access to the bootcamp if you prefer to go through that route. I haven't been to France recently, and if you're going to Bristol, then you should go to Bath. Jiki, as in what would Jiki cost to run, or what would Jiki cost to... nice to see you, JRM. Bye for now. Jiki will be free. It will be freemium. So it'll be free, and then there will be premium features. The premium features will be generally things where we incur a cost. So generally things where we use LLMs or other things, where there's a cost to us. And premium will be PPP. To run, a lot cheaper than Exercism. A lot cheaper than Exercism. I would be annoyed with myself if it costs more than like 1,000 a month. Yeah, exactly. So architecturally, it's a Next.js app running on Cloudflare workers, backed by a Rails API. The Cloudflare workers, I've worked it out at like 1 million users all using it, and it's like $30. The API with the scaling Aora database, I don't know, 500 a month maybe. Angelica. So this is something I haven't fully decided. So it won't have like formal mentorship like Exercism, because I don't want to deal with the two-sided network of mentors and mentees. I think I want a community feel to it somehow. I find that very hard and time-consuming and energy-sapping to manage. So maybe like forums. I think it will depend on whether there is an appetite from existing Exercism mentors to help with it. There's often a big split as to whether they want to help beginners or not, and beginners tend to be terrible at asking questions. A lot of what we had in the bootcamp was teaching people how to ask questions well. That worked well. I feel like the mentors for the bootcamp were working incredibly hard for like, I don't know, 100, 200 actively engaged students on Discord. Scale that to like 10,000 students, I just don't know how it would work. So a lot of the premium features are going to be around having like an LLM mentor, which is something I've been working on a lot in the background, which I can talk about technically. It's probably a longer conversation, but the exercises are very much designed they're designed with like an LLM, a teaching assistant built into the exercises. So each part of the exercise has like prompts for an LLM and a sort of explanation of what the student's goal are, how to move on to the next test, a whole load of quite complex stuff in the exercise design. That means that works really well because it's very narrow and not open-ended. So I think the premium, like the main premium feature will be that. It will be like a teaching assistant that works with you to solve the exercises. And my hope is that that's how we get people unstuck. And because it's beginner content and narrowly bound, I think we can do a really good job with LLMs. And certainly something like Gemini is now at a price point that makes it affordable to run as well. But yeah, I think it will be an interesting challenge. I think it'll be an interesting challenge to try and incorporate Discord or something in there. Hey, Drac. Nice to see you. Cool. So I'll probably ask on Discord. Yeah, I think so. So I've actually built out a whole prototype of this where the LLM also teaches, but where it is told what to teach. So effectively, it's got very specific guide rails that it can work in and can't break out of. I mean, it might be able to, but it's not supposed to break out of, both from the teaching content and then from the exercise content. But I think I'm going to do the teaching stuff manually, and then, like, as in by manual, I mean myself, and then do the exercise stuff in more of this method. Yeah, the other platforms tend to just have more arbitrary, this is an exercise, help a student with it. Less exercises that have had this stuff built in. Do I get irritated by beginner questions? No, I don't really ever get irritated by questions. My whole nature is around asking and answering questions. I get irritated about people that don't put effort into good questions and then expect people to put effort into good responses. I think asking a good question is a really important skill to develop in life. And if you don't ask a good question, you shouldn't expect a good answer. But I also think that opinion comes from a place of privilege where I've learned in life how to ask good questions. So I think teaching people to ask good questions is a really important thing to do in life. But I think there's a thin line around all of this sort of stuff as to how to... I don't think it's my job to teach everyone in the world how to ask a good question. So I think having like links that say your question's been asked very badly, read this question and then try and reform the question in a way that's actually good that I can answer it, is fine. The problem in my experience is most people just sort of get offended by that and then don't want to ask a question, which is probably fine. That sort of self-selects who I want to help anyway. But yeah. Yeah, I think so, Drac. I also think having 1 million more questions would help, 1 million more exercises. So for context for anyone watching this, Drac was super student in the bootcamp, went through everything and has now sort of started again to sort of try and reapply all the learning. I think the thing that's probably the biggest thing, Drac, is there were too many exercises that dropped you in too deep before you had really gained confidence with a small concept. So, you know, really like routing conditionals into your brain from 50 directions before you then start integrating that with more complex things. And then I think like also just constant reinforcement exercises. So like do a really hard exercise like matching socks and then have an easy exercise that is like an easy exercises that just readers loops from scratch that should take you like 5 minutes and then actually gives you confidence again. I think the thing I've learned is like how confidence sucking a complex exercise is, and the fact that when you solve a complex exercise, you get a massive dopamine hit and it feels great you've solved it. But it's also probably destroyed your confidence. So you sort of feel happy that you've solved it, but you come out feeling a mixture of happy, exhausted, and like confidence shaken. That's not a bad place to be if the next thing rebuilds the confidence up a chunk. And so I think that's one of the... I've been reflecting a lot on all this, and I think that's one of the reflections I've come to is there needs to be more of that, like, you've done something hard, you feel great, but we need to recognize that you're also exhausted and scared at that point. And we need to then give you a few more like fundamental things. Because what would happen is you would solve the hardest exercise in a week, and then you would turn up the next day to a teaching session and be taught a totally new concept. And you would be like mentally exhausted from where you were and then having to layer something new on top. So I think there's a gap in between those two steps that I didn't do very well in the boot camp that I think is something that I need to do a lot better with. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's a really big difference between learning problem solving, learning syntax, learning how things fit together. Like all of these things are like really different lanes. Like you need to learn the concept of a conditional, so like an if statement, the syntax of that, how to use it in practice in different places, when to know to reach for it, which is like where a lot of people get stuck, how it fits in with a loop, how it fits in with a function. Like all of these are different steps that you need to go through. You can't, and what a lot of sites do is just throw all of those steps at you. And even Jiki, which tried to break it, like in the bootcamp, which tried to break it down, still didn't do it well enough, I think. So yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with AWS costs. Sadly, it's not as straightforward as it might seem, but I appreciate you. I appreciate the suggestions. Yeah, so there's a lot of like AIs that help you solve something. The question is, are those things that are helping you solve something actually helping you solve it, or are they solving it for you? Are they helping you learn how to use an if statement, or are they helping you solve an exercise? The purpose of it, like the point of an exercise shouldn't be to solve the exercise. The point of an exercise should be for you to actually understand how to solve the exercise. Like completing an exercise is never the goal. And this is where I think everything falls apart and you need a lot of hard work. LLMs do what you tell them. So if you say, don't give the student an answer to this, an LLM will try not to do that. If you say, don't give a student the answer to this and don't help them solve the exercise, but do ask them questions to challenge their thinking, you start to get better results. There's a lot of layers to this. So you need to almost have like prompts to LLMs in general. You need to have prompts to LLMs that understand the student's code, what the student's been asked to do, what the student's trying to get to next. You need to teach the LLM or tell the LLM what the whole educational learning purpose of the exercise is. You need to tell the LLM where in a course the student is. Ideally, you want to tell the LLM how that student's doing with their learning, whether they're finding things easy, whether they're overwhelmed. Ideally, you want to tell the LLM what that student's learning style is, which you've learnt by analysing the previous conversations. Like, there's very many deep layers you can go. The way you do it is just to give the LLM context when you're asking a student's question. So you're saying, here's a load of stuff you need to know, here's the student's question, and then you get a response back. The bigger the context, the more it costs, so there's a balance. There's a whole load of stuff in here. But this is why it's very hard to apply this just to a generic exercise, and why you almost need to build a whole product around this, which is what I'm trying to do with this. The knowledge is the reward. I like that, Drac. Yeah. I'm not training an AI here. I'm not fine-tuning an AI. I'm just changing the context. Yeah, so as soon as you know a programming language, you can jump into Exercism and start learning other programming languages, and that's what Exercism itself is brilliant for. So that, yeah, Enrique, that's a good point. That's something I want to talk about in a minute, actually, for Exercism. So let's, yeah, you can't really fine-tune LLMs anymore, though, sadly. That sort of fine-tuning LLMs has disappeared as a concept, at scale at least. Okay, so Exercism. Let's move forward. So there's a few different things I think we can start to do with Exercism now. The first is I think we can augment the automated feedback that you get after a exercise with LLM-generated automated feedback. So I think we can do sort of just-in-time LLM feedback where we send someone's solution to an LLM and start to provide feedback. For learning exercises, this could be quite powerful and interesting because we can give a lot of context about what the exercise is trying to teach. For other exercises, we can carve out interesting descriptions of the different ways people solve it. So, for example, by analysing, I don't know, the 50 most popular or most interesting or highest rated or highest rep user solutions to Bob in Gleam, we could generate some interesting talking points about Bob in Gleam, and we can then pass those into the context of an LLM when the LLM is working out what feedback to give on a solution. So effectively, we can be building a repository of interesting information about our exercises and how people solve them in interesting ways, giving that to an LLM along with a student solution, and then propose suggestions based on those two things together. A tiny amount of people request mentoring on Exercism. Tiny amount. It's like probably, well under 1% of people. So I think we should seriously think about how we give mentoring quality stuff to people who aren't requesting mentoring. But also I think there's a real interesting opportunity here where we say, here's some automated feedback by an LLM. Why don't you just actually ask a mentor that's much smarter and much more knowledgeable than this LLM to give you some real feedback on your code? And I think we can sort of, English phrase of kill two birds with one stone, where we can give someone some immediate value that's good for their learning, which might also be rubbish depending on the LLM, with a big disclaimer about that, but also try and give them more ideas about the value of feedback and the value of asking questions and push them harder into mentoring. So I think there's an interesting opportunity here because I think LLMs are now good enough to do this and good enough to provide useful feedback a good proportion of the time. It's not better than mentoring. It's not always good feedback. It will often be not good feedback. But I think we could, again, get the LLM to ask the student questions and sort of give the student thinking points, talking points, rather than sort of giving nitpicking or critiquing or code review. So I think that's an interesting option that I want to explore. Let me just read the comments. It's definitely killing two birds with one stone. Yeah, so we could go via that path, but my experience, so the path of we give ideas to a mentor and the mentor then posts them. But I think the just-in-time nature of this is important. I think somebody who solves an exercise, has the code fresh in their mind, giving them straight away some good feedback and then, or some potentially good feedback, and then encouraging them to ask a mentor for help, I think is more going to get the reaction we want. So my thinking is that everyone gets like the first 2 or 3 of these free a month, and then insiders get some unlimited amount within fair usage limits beyond that. So we will have a cost that's associated with this for people getting 1 or 2 of these a month, but it will be a pretty bound cost, and we can always just have a hard total site limit for that as well, just to give us a cap in case something goes wild. And then it would easily be absorbed by someone's insiders membership. So I think this is a nice potential insiders upsell, and I think this is a valuable thing for people that want it, a valuable addition. Yeah, I agree. So the transparency, getting it with a mentor, all of these things, not pretending this is going to be amazing, but actually I've experimented with this a reasonable amount now, and I have learned stuff from this, especially if you're learning a language and you're doing an exercise that you're trying to piece together some ideas you've just learned. you do make really like beginner mistakes in that language, and an LLM recognizes those beginner mistakes. So it is like good enough to give you those mistakes pretty easily, I think. So yeah. Yeah. So that's how I'm thinking we will augment and add to automated feedback. There's two other LLM enhanced things I want to look at. One is adding the sort of LLM helper within the online editor. So having an LLM helper that can only ask you questions, so a little bit like what we're doing with Jiki. This won't have the same level of goodness that the Jiki one has because the exercises won't have been designed this way. But as another sort of premium insiders feature, I think just being able to have some chats with an LLM inside an editor, I don't see a downside to it, as long as it's like a big warning saying don't kill your own learning with this, and it has boundaries to only ask questions, not write code, other things like that. And we allow people to turn that on and off maybe in settings, and that's another low-hanging fruit. The third one that's interesting, I think, is those of you that have been around for a long time will remember that you used to be able to write descriptions next to your solutions. And those descriptions next to your solutions would then explain how the solution works, maybe talk about some of the design decisions, talk about interesting things about your solution. I think there is an opportunity now to do a similar thing. So, and there's a couple of angles we could take. I haven't decided which I think is best, open to thoughts. But where each of the community solutions effectively gets an explanation that's generated by an LLM. So it's an explanation of how this solution works. Originally I was thinking in a sort of code review style, but actually I think more like turning a community solution almost into a blog post. So you have the community solution at the top, and then below that you have like a blog post that talks about the community solution and pulls out interesting lines of code, maybe like ones that are a bit golfy, and explains how they work, that sort of vibe. But the owner of the community solution can, if they want to, edit it. So it's like pre-generated by the LLM. So it's there, it's usable for everyone. It's great for SEO as well, for Exercism. But the owner of the community solution can go away and hack on it. There are some challenges to this, which are community solutions are now representations. They're not owned by individuals. Those of you that are maintainers will understand more what that means than those of you that are not. But basically, we group community solutions that are very similar together and have one community solution for all of those. So there'll be some complexity in asserting who the owner of that community solution is. We might just do it on a rep basis or something like that. Or maybe it's a wiki basis per community solution. I'm not sure. But I think the idea of turning a community solution into a blog post adds a lot of where Exercism's value is in conversations about code. The fact that we use an LLM to do stuff and then again make it editable by a human. And I think a lot of our human power users will probably want to go through and add commentary to their solutions and make that better. I think that's an interesting trade-off as well. So this is the third area where I am excited to use LLMs to do this, and where I would be interested in hearing comments. I think this is probably maybe the most, what we would say in English, Marmite, the most Marmite suggestion, but I think would work well. Yeah, so representations now are disassociated from a user. We show on a representations page who the original creator of that solution is. So the first person to create that solution is the one who sort of gets the name sticker by it. If you look on a community solution now, it says this was first created by this person. So we could give that person the sort of edit permissions. That's definitely an option. And maybe that's the fairest option as well. I think that or the highest rep user are probably the two, if we don't go down the wiki one, and the wiki one feels quite messy. Yeah. So maybe the first solution feels fairest, because often it's often beyond twofer or trivial things, often the first person is the actual author and everyone else has copied it. A bit like First Blood in the CTF. Nice, I like. Yeah, so if you think, let me pull up a community solution now on Exercism so you can see how this looks. So if we look at So if we look here, so yeah, this shows this as Neil North's solution. And yeah, these are all, that's interesting, these are all actually still under someone's name. So they are their solution. But yeah, we track. Okay, yeah, interesting. I thought we had evolved this, and it only appears once for that person here. Interesting. So yeah, all of these share the same underpinning representation. So maybe we could just create. We could almost create the blog post bit for each one of these, and maybe each one does just get its own. Maybe it's not on a representation at all, and we just have duplicates and people can edit them if they want to. That would also maybe just work. We still only have to generate it once per representation, but then we just distribute it out to everyone. If you change the representation, does it use the publish submission date? It uses, so the representation is just a grouper, and that just groups solutions together. So theoretically, if you change the representation, the representer, all of these, this might partition into 2 or merge into 6, might be like 1,500 or 6,000. But either way, it should regroup everything, and this should these two should still be accurate. Yeah, so it's the oldest among the representations in that group. Who's first? Yeah. So I still really want to do this as well. So this is the other thing that we can do with LLMs now, I think, is start to use approaches much more as well, which is sort of the original version of what I was suggesting. Okay, so these are my ideas. I'm probably not going to implement these until Jik is launched in January, but I think we have time to think about all of these and explore these. And sort of bounce ideas around. And then I think when we do want to do them, they'll all be quite quick. We've already got branches for 2 of them that I've hacked away on and then got rid of. And LLM prices keep coming down, which is nice. But I wanted to seed these on this call so that you've all got them in your mind and can think about them and can chat about them on Discord and other things. Yeah, coming soon. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. Q&A. First question was, should we restrict mentoring to people who have been mentored? I quite like that. I think receiving 2 mentor sessions before you can mentor feels fair to me. Does anyone have any objections to that as an idea? Yeah, so yeah. Two mentors with like 2 mentors that have got some level of mentoring rep. I don't know what the right number is. Yeah, the problem is I don't have time to audit potential mentors. There's no yeah. So I think we need some sort of, yeah, but that has worked for 11 years. It can be faked, you're right, but it has also worked for 11 years as a system. Yeah, and that is a problem. If someone wants to mentor and wants to help out on the JavaScript track, imagine there's there's not, but imagine there's 1,000 solutions in the JavaScript track. There's a new mentor that's going to really help out. There's no mentors in the JavaScript track. Panic. That is the only issue. So it's almost like we need to guarantee there's active mentors, or maybe they need to get mentored in a different language. I do think being mentored in a different language is actually a good thing, but okay, it seems like people are generally in favour of it. Maybe we do something which is like, I want to be, we say you need to have achieved these things. If you request a mentor, no one's taken it, post on Discord and we'll help find you a mentor. And then somebody else can just pick it up. Yeah, I agree, Bethany. In the future, would Exercism have a program where it sets up groups for junior developers to work on projects? This is the sort of thing I'd like to do, but I would need to have some more resource than what I have to be able to do. So I think it's like, yeah, something where if we're able to get Jiki working, able to get some money coming in, then maybe it's something we could start building out these programs and doing these other things. Could you explain what you mean by that, Sen? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Yeah, that's true, did you? Yeah, super mentors. Maybe super mentors can like green light anyone. That might be a good idea, actually. If super mentors have the power to restrict or accept mentors. That's a nice idea, Sam. I mean, we tried to do this a while back. We had cohorts working through things together and stuff. It just needs somebody to run it all and manage it all and do all of that sort of stuff. And I don't have the time to do that. And from experience, there needs to be some staff member involved to make this stuff all actually coherently work. But it's something I would always love to do. Yeah, so Drac, one thing maybe is like, maybe in Jicky in general. I think maybe that's a thing in Discord where you can ask for help you can create ask help threads on Discord, and only people who are 10 steps further on in Jicky, or whatever the number is, can actually answer the questions. And so we don't end up with massive pile-in, but we do end up with people who are certain forward going backwards. So if the moment I hire people, I have to manage people. Managing people is exhausting and tiring. So I manage Aaron by telling Aaron to go and do something, and he goes and does it. And then the next day, I turn to do something else and he does it again. My whole managing of Aaron takes about 5 minutes a day. And Aaron and I haven't had a video call in about a year, and it just works. It works because we have like stupidly high level of like trust, because Aaron's fantastic. And because we built that trust and we built everything else through like the first year of Aaron working on Exercism. When new people come into the team, it takes a lot of time to build that trust, that understanding. Aaron knows when to ask me questions. Aaron knows when to not ask me questions. Aaron knows when to just make executive decisions, when not to. Like Aaron's ability to work with me is what means that I can manage, which I don't have to do a lot of, I can manage Aaron. So that needs to be very synergistic and very like high trust for that to work without me losing all of my ability to be me. So when Exercism hired people before, I did nothing but have conversations all day. And that's great, but it means we take me out of all the equations. And right now, I think having me in the equation is much more powerful for Jicky and for Exercism than having me out of the equation when it comes to like product and coding and those sorts of things. So I think that will be the decision point in some point in the future, is we've got a system that really works really well, that's really like scaling, and we need to hire people to come and do all this stuff to make it scale, but we don't need me in the equation to innovate anymore. And when that happens, that's when I'll hire and have interns and everything else. But if you all think back to like V2, when we were making V2, we were having community calls each week, like Exercism was having new features every day. There were new like things being responded to. Like that was me in innovation phase doing stuff. It was exciting. It was fun. It was like what the bootcamp students got the first like 3 months of this year, where I was literally writing a programming language and then deploying the programming language on a Monday, so they got new things that actually the programming language had in. Like that energy that goes in cannot work if I'm having to talk to people in the week. It can only work when I have loud music in my ears, a dark room and a black screen with some green text. Like that is my happy place. That is when magic happens at that level. Magic can happen at scaling level and business level and all those other things when I don't have to be involved in it, when I don't have to be involved in innovating. So that's the trade-off. That's the bit in between, I think. No, you see, I don't want Aaron to teach the new hires. I want Aaron to sit in a dark room and carry on outputting brilliant stuff for me in a high level of trust. Like, I don't want Aaron to become a manager. I want Aaron to carry on being a brilliant front-end developer. So mentoring sessions are deliberately private because that creates high trust within the mentoring space. So that was a very strategic decision we made, where we wanted mentoring to be private between student and mentor, so that people could feel vulnerable in that space and it not look like they feel stupid. We used to have like a sharing function. I don't think we have it anymore, where it might still be there actually, where it's anonymized. Maybe if you share a mentoring session outside of the session, it becomes anonymized. I can't remember. Maybe that's still there. It's Aaron, Aran. Aren, Arun. How do you spell Aaron? Aaron, how do I spell your name? Aron. There you go. I didn't even realize it was Aaron speaking. Hello, Aaron. I chose every single verb then. Verb? I'm too tired. My brain's gone. Every single vowel except for O when I tried to do that. Okay, we're at 9 o'clock. That's my cutoff. I promised myself that because people tell me 3-hour sessions are too long. Thank you all for coming. I look forward to hearing thoughts and questions on Discord. One thing I'll just say in close is I'm like, and it sort of fits with what I was just saying, I'm pretty like disconnected from Discord and the forum and things at the moment. I am coding for many hours a day. I'm averaging about 3,000 lines of code a day. It's fun. I'm going to carry on doing that until January when we launch an awesome product. So for those of you that are sort of holding the fort down, the mentors, the moderators, the maintainers, thank you all so much. I really need that from you and really, really vastly appreciate it. I don't want any of you to think that my lack of being around is a lack of interest or commitment or anything else. It's purely, well, very much the opposite. It's a laser focus on doing what we need to give Exercism a future and to double down on all of the work that we've put in so far. So yeah, I will see you all on another one of these as we get closer to the year. And yeah, I look forward to speaking to you then. I look forward to seeing you on Discord when I do turn up and say hello there. Thank you all so much for coming along. You're all great, especially those of you who contribute and who make Exercism what it is. I will let you know how you can help. There'll definitely be a testing phase, Bethany, especially for the Python stuff and other things, as I can't speak Python. But yeah, you're all awesome. Thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you on a future live stream on Discord. And yeah, the main thing I'd ask is when we get to January, we start to make a massive, massive effort to get everyone in the world using Jicky. And we tap into our networks to work out how we can do that. So if you want a job between now and January, make a list of every single person you know in your network that can help us explode Jicky when it launches. And then I'll be coming and knocking on your doors and asking you to do that for us. Awesome. Thanks so much. Odin, welcome to Exercism. Bye for now, everyone. Thank you for your time.